All right. Well, I have just going to start this slideshow here. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay? Jenny?
Yes, I had to like agree to the use of my
Got it.
audio or something to be able to turn my mic on, but yes,
Right.
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. This is being recorded, and this is just some public information that we wanted to be able to record and share on our website. And if anybody had any questions in person, we'll be happy to take them at the end. This is going to be a brief presentation about the regulation of wake sports on Lake Morey and Lake Carmi, because these lakes fall into a special consideration category because they've received alum treatments. My name is Laura DeLugalecki, and I work for the Department of Environmental Conservation Lakes and Ponds program. I'm the Policy and Outreach Coordinator, and I'm joined by Jenny Austin. She's the Lakes and Ponds Program Manager. And today I'm going to talk about just a really brief overview of the new wake sports regulations that went into place, why we have some special considerations for lakes that have received alum treatments, kind of go over how those special considerations affect those lakes, and what we're doing to implement these new rules. So I'm going to have a couple of slides on wake sports background just to make sure we're all on the same page. When we talk about these regulations, we use these two different terms, wake boats and wake sports, and they're not interchangeable. So a wake boat is the boat that has these large ballast tanks or bags that can be filled, and then it increases the weight of that boat. And when that boat travels, usually at slow speeds, it creates a large wake. So the creation of that large wake or wave, we call that wake sports. And then any of the recreational activity that occurs on that large wake is also wake sports. So surfing on the back of the wave. And most of our regulations we have are focused around where wake sports can occur. And so the reason that we have these regulations, we have three concerns mostly about wake boats and wake sports. One is this large wake and its potential to cause shoreline erosion or to impact other users. The way that wake boats operate when they're in wake sports mode is they can sometimes have a deep propeller wash or stir up the lake bottom sediments that can cause water quality issues. And then the fact that they have large, often inaccessible ballast tanks that can't be completely drained, that kind of increase the risk of the potential of spread of aquatic invasive species. So those are our concerns about this activity and why we have regulations in place to address those. You've probably seen in the news, Vermont was the first state to make regulations stating where wake sports can occur and requiring decontamination for wake boats when they travel between water bodies. Our first iteration of the rules went into effect in April of 2024, and we just finished additional amendments that went into effect on June 11th of this year. So what these rules say is that wake sports can occur only in wake sport zones. Wake sport zones are areas that have 100 contiguous acres that are 500 feet from shore on all sides, at least 20 feet deep, 3,000 feet long, and 200 feet wide. So then we also have decontamination requirements for wake boats. If you have, the decontamination requirements are actually for more than just wake boats. They're for any vessel that has a ballast. So ballasted watercraft have to receive a hot water decontamination when they move between water bodies, and we have some specific requirements of what that looks like. And then we have some additional offsets for those engaged in wake sports. So we require that Wake sports operators remain 500 feet from other users, and this is for safety because of that enhanced wake. We want to give additional space between swimmers and kayakers and other users. And we also require a 500-foot offset from signed loon nesting sites. And so those are for when the enhanced wake is created. So what that leaves is about 18 lakes in Vermont, inland lakes. So those are lakes that are entirely within the state of Vermont. That leaves 18 inland lakes where wake sports can occur within a designated wake sports zone. Wake sports can also occur on our cross-boundary lakes. So Lake Champlain shares a boundary with New York and Canada, and Medford-Magog shares a boundary with Canada. Wake sports are allowed in those lakes. Wake boats, when they're not in wake sports mode, can really operate anywhere that traditional motorboats are allowed, provided they follow those decontamination protocols. And so that's kind of the background of where we are. We have these regulations in place. But as we were just going through this most recent revision of our use of public waters rules and our regulations regarding wake sports, we were acknowledging that both internally at the agency and we were hearing concern from the public that the lake bed disturbance from wake sports could potentially impact lakes that have received alum treatments. We know that wake sports generate the lake bed disturbances below the water. And there's concern that that downward draft propulsion could impact the effectiveness of the alum treatments. And the existing rules, the rules that we have in place are very protective for erosion. But, you know, there was a concern, do we need something more protective for these places that a very significant investment of time and work in the watershed, state, local, federal funding have all gone into these treatments if they could somehow inadvertently impact this effort. So you all in these communities probably know quite a bit about alum treatments. You might be more aware than anyone else, but I just want to kind of give a little bit of context. So alum treatments have occurred in lakes where there are persistent algal blooms, and an overabundance of phosphorus in a lake is what leads to these algal blooms. When aluminum sulfate or alum is applied to a lake, it binds to the phosphorus in the water column and it forms a particulate that's called a flock. And the flock is heavier than water and it settles down to the lake bottom, creating a barrier that slows phosphorus release from the sediment. That's a natural, normal process, but this kind of binds it to the sediment. And so these treatments reduce the phosphorus availability in the water column, which reduces algae blooms in the lake. And as I mentioned, you know, these treatments require a lot of investment. They are expensive. There's a lot of prep work you have to do beforehand to reduce phosphorus inputs into the water bodies. These are huge undertakings for communities. And because of our concerns that wake sports could potentially stir up bottom sediments within a regular wake sport zone, we added this language into our amendments. So basically what this says, this is a big block of text, but it's saying that the secretary or the Agency of Natural Resources can alter a wake sport zone or the eligibility of a lake to allow wake sports based on a lake management activity if wake sports were going to negatively impact that lake management activity. So this adds in some flexibility to address these lake-specific scenarios as they come up without going through the lengthy rulemaking process that can take, you know, usually 1 to 2 years. So this allows us to be more responsive to these issues. So currently, as I mentioned, wake sport zones are required to be at least 20 feet deep. And this is seen in the scientific literature as fairly protective of lake bed sediments to prevent those downward forces from creating turbidity in the lake. But you know, the use of public waters rules aren't managing recreational boating to an absolute zero impact standard. There's a balance that prioritizes allowing uses while being protective of the resource, but it's not a zero impact regulation. You know, traditional motorboats can impact the lake bottom sediments at up to 10, up to 10 feet deep. So there's already some background impact. So although this 20-foot depth is seen as very protective in general, there is evidence that the downward forces from wake sports can actually be disruptive up to 33 feet deep. And it's highly variable depending on the type of lake bed sediments, the type of wake boat, all these factors. But there was this thought that, again, because of this significant investment and effort to do these treatments, that we should treat these lakes differently. So we developed some guidance for alum-treated lakes that says in order for wake sports to occur, there needs to be a wake sport zone that has 100 contiguous acres, 500 feet from shore on all sides, 3,000 feet long, and at least 35 feet deep instead of the 20-foot deep area. So basically, the wake sport zone has to be big enough to have all the other criteria, but it has to be within 35 feet deep. And this is a temporary alteration of the wake sport zone that will be reevaluated each boating season. And if you want to see this policy that we've developed, it is posted on our Wakesports web page. I can put the links in the chat when we're done with this presentation. So in Vermont, there are 3 lakes that have had alum treatments. The umbrella term is phosphorus inactivation treatment. There are multiple different types of phosphorus inactivation treatments. The kind that we've done in Vermont are called alum. So Lake Morey, Lake Carmi, and Tickle Naked Pond have all received alum treatments. Tickle Naked Pond is too small to have a wake sport zone under our use of public waters rules. So Lake Morey and Lake Carmi are the lakes that we are looking at in terms of how they interact with wake sports. So this map shows the treatment area of Lake Carmi, and alum is applied based on depth. So alum is applied beginning at a 26-foot depth in the lake. Lake Carmi is a fairly shallow lake. It's also quite large, which makes it wake sports eligible, but the alum was applied beginning at the 26-foot depth contour to the deepest part of the lake. When we remapped a wake sport zone for Carmi to meet the standards, 500 feet from shore, 3,000 feet long, 100 acres, 35 feet deep, there was not enough space to support a wake sport zone. There's not enough acreage at that depth. Lake Carmi basically maxes out at only about 35 feet deep. It's too shallow to support wake sport zone under these special requirements. So Lake Carmi is not eligible for wake sports this boating season. In Lake Morey, similarly, the alum was applied beginning at the 26-foot depth contour up to about the 43-foot depth range, which is where Lake Morey maxes out. Lake Morey has a different bathymetry and shape as compared to Carmi. But what we found is that there was over 100 acres that could meet all the criteria in areas that were 35 feet deep and greater. So if we weren't looking at it, if we weren't evaluating the wake sport zone under this altered depth, the wake sport zone would be 255 acres. But under this more protective scenario, Lake Morey has 193 acres of wake sports zone that is all 35 feet and deeper. And so this is to prevent any disturbance to the alum treatment, and wake sports cannot occur outside of this area. So, it's an awkward time to have a new rule right at the beginning, in the middle of boating season, but we are doing our best to have signage up at all the access areas, to communicate these new rules with the game wardens, to inform greeters, this public information session to try to get the word out as much as possible. And some people may not know these rules. because they are new and we're rolling them out during the boating season. But I think if you see something that is suspect, please report it to a game warden, because they will follow up on it and they will help educate the folks about where they should be and where they should not be. And that's all I have. Thanks for your time. If there are any questions, I will happily answer them.
Laura, I do have a couple of questions, and I hope I formulate these in the right way. Some of them are mine and some of them were given to me.
Okay.
So the first question is there's an app, a Venza app, apparently, that can tell me where I am on any lake or on land even. Do you know, is that still available? And are you aware of it?
I am aware of it, and this is actually kind of heartbreaking. So Avenza was such a great tool because you could download a geo-referenced PDF and when you're online and then use it anywhere without being connected to the internet. But Avenza was just bought out by a private equity company. They've changed their model. They aren't allowing us to upload anything new. So we don't have the new maps available on Avenza. We do have georeferenced PDFs you can download from our web pages. I can share that. I'll share that in the chat in just a second. And we are looking for alternative methods to find something equivalent to Avenza, but it's just this company changed their model. And it's really sad because a lot of natural resource agencies use Avenza as like their free way to share maps with people that could be used offline. So I'm very heartbroken about this, but we're looking for a replacement. I do have some leads on that.
Okay.
And any links, any replacement information we have for those maps will be on our Wakesports webpage.
Okay. Yeah, that is unfortunate because that actually is a very easy way for someone coming to Lake Morey to know that they're within the zone.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think the only way to know where the zone is for either the lake association or the town to put in buoys that mark it somehow, because otherwise you don't know. And we haven't done that yet. I don't know that we have a commitment from the LMPA or the town or how to even go about doing that yet. Is that so? We're really the only lake. I think from what you were saying, we're the only lake in Vermont that has had an alum treatment that wake boats will be allowed to operate on. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the second question is, the rules say that the state will reevaluate the lake every year. What are they going to use to evaluate the lake? If we have an algal bloom, then we know that we've stirred up the sediments enough to release phosphorus into the lake to have it. I mean, what are we talking about? What are we looking to provide?
Yeah, this is still a conversation we're having with our scientists, but I think basically there is an effectiveness curve of the alum treatment. So in the first, some number of years, whether that's 5 or 8, it would be most sensitive to disturbance. And then after, there might be enough other sediment accumulation or something on top where disturbance isn't going to impact its effectiveness. So I think this is something that we're still trying to determine. I can't exactly predict the future, but I imagine this being like a restriction that's in place for multiple years. And it's something that there isn't a lot of scientific literature on. So we're following that as well, because maybe will emerge some prescription for what is appropriate. But I think for as long as this treatment is most sensitive, we'd want to have these protective measures in place.
Okay, but we do know that, and I believe my understanding with Lake Morey is that Lake Morey has had two alum treatments.
Correct.
One in the 80s,
19
perhaps?
Yeah. Yeah. Either that or like really early 90s, I think.
Yeah, so they had the one and it was, and I think that we were told, or what the information provided is that they're about a 20 to 30-year life cycle on an
Mhm.
alum treatment.
Mhm.
Which is interesting because at some point it feels like the alum, you were describing it being covered by other sediments and being more protected over time, but it does wear off over time or breaks down. I don't know if the alum breaks down or how that, what the effect is.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if the state, what scientific information is the state evaluating without looking at Lake Morey and providing scientific research on the lake that's being used in Vermont or being restricted? Where are they getting their data? How will they get data that will be relevant to Lake Morey?
Yeah. Um, that's a good
You,
question.
I mean, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
where this is leading to, or I'll just say, is that
Yeah.
I want the state to come to Lake Morey and do some scientific research to help us do this. Otherwise, we're sort of in the dark, trying to figure out
Right.
where do we go? What are we doing? How are we
Yeah.
doing it?
Yeah.
Are we paying for some, a research crew to come and study the lake for the next 10 years?
Yeah.
How are we doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I think, well, one, we're monitoring any kind of national science that comes out. We
Do we
are,
know, before you go on, do we know that there are other lakes in other states that have alum treatments and that they're being studied?
certainly, but not, I have not seen any specific studies about recreational impacts to alum treatments. This is something I've looked into, and there's just not a scientific body of literature on that. So, but that is something that we're continuing to monitor. I know that folks in our program are very clued into that.
And we
Yeah,
do
sorry, go ahead.
sampling. We do sampling for phosphorus levels and the effectiveness of the alum treatment. We have, you know, the pre-alum treatment levels and then comparing it to after. So our lake science, our monitoring program is monitoring the phosphorus levels. And I think that the thing that degrades the effectiveness over time of the alum treatment is more the inputs from the watershed. So that's what, is so important about continuing efforts in the watershed to reduce phosphorus, coming into the water column and feeding algal blooms, contributing to more phosphorus loading. So yeah, that is something that we are monitoring. And the clarity, water clarity as well, which is it's a indicator for us of
Is that,
potential for phosphorus and algal blooms. So
Jenny, is that where they use like the round white disc and you lower it down just to see what
yeah,
depth the
the
clarity
Secchi
reaches?
disc. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
a
okay.
black and
I
white thing. Yeah.
couldn't remember
So
that. I did that in college so long ago, but couldn't remember what it was called. Um, and so
Yeah.
and so you guys are sampling, the state is sampling the water here, or are we sending you
Yes,
samples? I know we have a
both,
yeah, but
both. So
both.
we
LMPA and
have,
they're doing a lot of stuff
Yeah.
too.
yeah, we have
Yeah, it's both.
volunteer lay monitors that provide us information, and then also our state employees or field technicians go and sample as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and this is something that as we were updating these use of public waters rules regarding wake boats, we saw this as an issue that we needed to address. And it is true that we don't have all the answers of exactly how this will be evaluated each year. And that is something that we hope to develop and have better information on, but it was kind of this is something we need to address now, in the moment. And hopefully as the science improves, we can have more clarity about how in 5 years this might be evaluated.
Yeah.
But it felt important enough to put in there now to ensure that these, that wake sports are kept in deeper areas.
Yeah. Um, okay. So in any good scientific experiment, you have a control, but how do we know whether the phosphorus is coming from an inflow to the lake or it's being contributed to sediment disturbance in the bottom? Is that the hope with the Secchi disk that monitoring clarity? I mean, say we have a week worth of four wake boats on the lake going back and forth within the 193 acre zone. Or how do we know in the moment what effect those boats are having on the subsurface of the lake or on the sediment layer of the lake? I mean, I guess we just have a lot of concerns. Having not personally lived through the experience of having a widespread cyanobacteria algal bloom on the lake and having it be, basically the whole lake. Before, I can see where we're very protective of our lake. Let's say. So we have that, and we also have, I understand too that the boats are now bigger boats or boats that create a deeper wake are coming on the market. I mean, it's like a moving target for everybody involved. And I know you don't have an answer for that, but just know that I have heard that. So okay, so so there is scientific research going on at the state level. And how do I access that data if we wanted to see it? I mean, do you provide it? Is there a place that the public
Yes,
can go and see it?
yes. Um, the we do. Let me see. I can put a link in the chat. But we have the lay monitoring data and our spring phosphorus, which kind of sampling, which tells us two different things. Let's see here.
And
The
some others that other than I may know where that is already. I just don't know.
Yeah, looking for the best. Um,
And Laura, I'm assuming that there was a feasibility study done for Morey as well,
yes.
that would have had very much more of a data analysis. And to your question about how do they determine what's internal phosphorus internal to the sediments versus what's coming in to the lake. So they did a determination about that because that's one of the criteria that we need to have in order for a lake to receive an alum treatment. There's no point in treating a lake with alum if there's too much coming in from the watershed. So they did a determination to figure out that, oh, this lake has a lot of legacy sediment phosphorus, and that's the primary problem going on here. And that the watershed may have some small inputs, but it's being controlled pretty well. And that's really like in terms of investment, like they went through that analysis. So that feasibility study should be on our website. And then Carmi also had one done, and it was done pretty well. I think it's worth reading if you're interested in the science behind, like, yeah, determining the phosphorus.
Okay. So there was study that determined that phosphorus coming into the lake, that it was really coming from the sediments, basically, I think is what
Primarily, right.
you're
So
saying.
that
Because
it
then
was a good candidate, therefore it was a good candidate for alum treatment, and the other kinds of treatments wouldn't be as effective. And, just we needed that to be able to do the alum treatments. And so those reports have lots of data. In addition to the we kind of have a baseline program of every spring or every summer, the lay monitoring data of phosphorus levels, dissolved oxygen, temperature. We have a whole array of different parameters that we collect, and then the Secchi disk clarity readings over time. So all that. That may also be in the feasibility studies as well. They used our data in there as well. So
Is that tied up that lay monitoring, the lay monitoring program, that's tied up in the whole aquatic invasive species monitors, the people who are trained in the
no,
community to monitor that? Are they adding that data to that too?
It's
Or
kind of
no?
a different thing. So
it's a separate kind of program,
yeah,
but
Okay.
we do have monitoring of that, but the lay monitors are very focused on water quality parameters. So specifically, the nutrient content and characteristics of the water. And then there are aquatic species monitors that, are looking at plants and animals, doing plant surveys.
that's not to
stress
say
testing.
though that someone who's a lay monitor may also be a Vermont invasive patroller. We have the VIP program that
Yes.
they're out there looking for it would make sense that a lot of the lay monitors probably are also VIPs and they're out there looking for aquatic invasives as well. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, they're kind of
Um,
separate programs.
do you also envision assistance from conservation commissions? I mean, we do have a newly formed conservation commission with a lot of very excited people who are in it. Um, do you ever incorporate those people into, or you don't specifically look to conservation commissions for help monitoring lakes?
I mean, I think there's a lot of overlap just around the state. The folks who are involved in that also get involved in our monitoring program, but our monitors are, we kind of have a general call for monitors across the state, and they sign up and get trained and get all the equipment. And but any partnership we can have with, whether it's a lake association or a conservation commission, is great to get the word out about these items. And yeah, I mean, we would welcome any other way, any way to help get information out is important to us.
Yeah. Okay. All right. The other thing that was with that there was some concern about are the monitoring of the ballast and decontamination. I know when I went through, I actually participated in the greeter program training just so I would know what people were working for me or have to do, and what they're required to do. And part of that was talk about decontamination and that the only real, I think the only certified decontamination units are around Lake Champlain, and that we don't really have them here. And so my question one was, we're depending on people who have boats to know what they're supposed to do. Although sometimes I think we have people from out of state who come to Vermont and maybe don't know the rules. Our greeters are trained to look for those things and to let them know what the requirements are. But how do we enforce that? That's not something the greeters can enforce. And if you don't know what someone's doing on a lake, how do you even know people are being protective of that intake and output of the ballast water in these wake boats?
Well, so yes, the only the only larger hot water decontamination units that the state helps fund are along Lake Champlain, and there are 4 of them. There are other places to get decontaminations, and this is something that we really want to improve statewide.
Yeah.
But there are also manners to do it at like marina, boat service shops. We've been talking to folks about that. For people to some people have the equipment personally to do that.
Yeah.
So yes, and
Other states have it too.
Yeah, other states have the ability. Boats can get a lot. It is very common to get a decontamination when you exit the water. So
Yeah.
so a lot of states have that kind of capacity in place. But this is something that the greeters do need to inform the boaters about, the ballasted tank
Mhm.
boater operators. And if they don't comply, they can inform a game warden. But we are trying to do a hefty amount of education and outreach on the front end so that people know what to do. And then, provide the enforcement authorities with the information to direct people to do the right thing, or to, be able to work with resolving violations. But yeah, that's kind of the
So-
system we have. Is there's not like an enforcement officer at every access area to ensure. It's a lot of
Right.
education and outreach, trying to get people to do the right thing and to learn about it.
So the follow-on question for that, is there a and you may or may not know the answer to this question. Is there a certification process? I mean, we have a small Fairleigh Marine, as a boat sale place that's pretty close to Lake Morey. How do you have to become certified to do this, to be listed
Not
somewhere
yet.
as a certified decontamination site, and then also, is there funding you said there might be funding available from the state. Say that Fairleigh Marine decides they want to do this service, which would be great because it's just right around the corner. Is there a certification process, and is there money available to help them do this
So yeah,
service?
that is a more of a long-term vision of ours, but it is a documented like goal for us to develop a partnership program that has that kind of a certification aspect. We're just, currently piloting a receipt this boating season at the Lake Champlain sites, and a, um, getting better information about the training for or investigating the feasibility of having a training for how to decontaminate ballasted vessels, and developing that, because that would be part of the certification process that has yet to be developed, but that is the goal, so that we expand our capacity and our network of options for people to use, and that it's still something that can have a reliable standard of sorts. And yes, there would be funding available for to provide, as an example, Fairleigh Marine with funding to support, getting the proper unit, and getting training, and paying for a greeter that has the training to provide these decontaminations. Or not a greeter, but I guess this if it's the marina, is it a boat dealer or a marina?
He's a boat dealer.
Yeah. So yeah, for them to become certified. Yeah, I don't know if he would be charging. It's I guess what we're envisioning is there may be a mixture of marinas that charge for the service, and then there may be some that would get grant money to then provide the service for free. It's one or the other, though. Can't.
Yeah.
But, in the meantime, I think basically I put a link there of the decontamination requirement, and it tells you what temperatures, what
Yep.
parts of the boat, how long, if somebody can do that at home, or if they can talk to somebody at Fairleigh Marine about, hey, can you do this for me every time I go between Fairleigh and Morey? Like that, that could be a really good opportunity.
Yeah.
Could be good business for them. So
we aren't currently requiring like a certified decontamination. It's just not within our capacity at the moment, but we envision it as something that we want to achieve. So
I could see enforcement would be hard. I mean, you're
it would
making
be.
this a requirement. I mean,
Yeah.
You can't follow around everybody with every boat everywhere they go. So
Yeah.
And you have your hand raised. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
no, I'm sorry.
Oh, was that?
Yeah, do you hear it's Noel Walker? I'm a lister in town. I'm also a Lake Morey resident, and have been for generations. My concern, and I appreciate everything that you're attempting to do, but aren't we playing with fire if we don't have things in place to restrict boats coming from outside until we have better regulations and rules for enforcement? We can be contaminating our lake, you know, and exactly what we're trying to prevent. That's a real concern. And I know I appreciate the efforts that have gone into protecting the lake because of the alum treatments and the amount of money that's been spent. But I guess a feeling that it's not going far enough until there is enforcement, there's ways. I mean, I truly try to accept what people tell me, but I've been in the public service long enough to know that people will not always be forthcoming and they will tell you what you want to hear. And how do you keep a boat off of the lake if you know that it has not? You can't. So you're allowing something to occur that you're just trying to avoid. I mean, to me, if we have an alum treatment lakes, why aren't we just banning wake boats, period, until we know that there's a better time for scientific information that after a certain period of time, it wouldn't make a difference. But until we really know that, why aren't we protecting this body of water at this time? I mean, I'm extremely disappointed that this isn't been more protected, because now Lake Morey is the only lake apparently on this side of the state that has possibility of wake boats, other wake boats coming in, not just ones that live on the lake. I'm not really particularly worried about the people that are on the lake because they have an investment in their lake. It's people from outside coming in. And I don't know what, as a town, what can we do? Can we petition? Can we petition to totally remove wake boats? I mean, what is our avenue? Because there's real concern. Thank you.
So Laura, I wonder, is there a process? I mean, Noel asked if there was a process petitioning the state, but they have rules that just went into effect, the 35-foot rule with alum treated lakes, which was basically just us, in effect. So what I'm hoping is that because we're the state of Vermont is allowing wake boat sports to happen on Lake Morey, that they'll actually focus a little more deeply on Lake Morey and provide help with scientific research that would happen on the lake, rather than it feels like it's sort of depending on the town and its protective agency, Lake Morey Protective Association, to
certainly-
then do that work and gather that
Certainly
scientific data.
Certainly because of the alum treatment, there's already additional monitoring and work occurring. There is a focus on this area.
Okay.
So that is definitely true. You know, in terms of making sure people are doing wake sports in the 35-foot depth area, that is a community effort, because we can put information out there, we can tell the game wardens, but there's a, you know, it's kind of an all-in effort on that, to get that information out there.
Yeah.
And the decontamination requirements, the same thing. We can share information, we can do press releases, we can provide educational information to the greeters, and at the same time try to work on expanding our capacity, but it is an all-in effort.
And the greeters do have training to, if the worry is from these out of state boaters, coming in and spreading an aquatic invasive species, there are mechanisms in terms of the interview process and finding out where they're coming from, finding out if they've received a decontamination. And yes, at any time people can lie. It's just, if there is the ability to prove or if there's stuff hanging off the back of the boat and it's obvious that the greeter can point to and take a picture and send it to the warden, there is an enforcement mechanism for the wardens and the Vermont State Police to issue violations. And there is a boater attention card that we've developed that outlines what the laws are, and it's very, in red, like potential for $1,000 fine. So it's a little bit of an disincentive for people to lie or to try to get around things. But I tend to try to believe in the Vermonter tendency to be very civic and very community minded, and we all kind of know each other in our communities. So there is sort of like a kind of community enforcement of the rules, or just general good behavior, because you don't want to be a bad neighbor, you don't want to be that person. But yeah, I get it when it comes to the out of staters, or people coming in new and just not knowing. But that's where the education comes in, and the voter attention card. So yeah, we have a lot of improvements to make. We're looking at expanding our capacity and everything, and expanding our scientific understanding of these alum treatments and the interaction with Wakesports. We do have some relationships with the universities that could potentially result in some good studies that we support or we collaborate on. So we've got a lot of ideas, but yeah, this is like we're on the cutting edge of that particular topic.
No
so
other state has
yeah.
anything like this. We're the first
Yeah.
in the nation to regulate wake sports at a statewide level in this way. It's most restrictive. So I think we've made a lot of progress. So there's that positive side.
Well, definitely applaud your efforts to get in front of it. And I know that folks in our town have been very active lobbying the state and looking, to try to restrict wake boat sports on Lake Morey, just for the fact that we have had trouble with cyanobacteria in the past, and just trying to keep it under control. I did hear a story someone said, I'll just share it with you, that the phosphorus in Lake Morey came from when all the hillsides were denuded and there were just sheep everywhere, and that all the sheep pellets rolled downhill into the lake and washed into the lake, and that it's always had a high phosphorus level because of the sheep, which I find.
Yeah, that's true for a lot of Vermont lakes. Like the phosphorus levels are really were increased 150 years ago.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, it's the same thing for Carmi. It's kind of like a bowl, and everything just kind of washed in.
Someone described Lake Morey's water as being its own watershed, because all the water from every direction goes into the lake except for the outlet. Well,
yeah.
Okay. So going back just one more time, just confirm for me the annual yearly evaluation. What are the factors that go into that? They're looking at the water quality data that they've collected, that the state's collected over the year.
Our own data on the lake, any scientific literature that does happen to come out.
So Vermont is really the only one studying this? Is that? I mean,
no, that actually a lot of our literature came from Minnesota,
Okay.
There's other states that
And
are
Wisconsin, yeah,
yeah,
Well, Minnesota makes
Wisconsin.
sense. They have lots of
Yeah.
lakes in Minnesota.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think, part of it in our rules, we wanted we wanted to have this flexibility written in to address issues as they come up. Um, but we didn't want any decision we made to be like a forever decision. So there is this kind of annual reevaluation, but just based on what we do know about alum treatments, I think that for several years after an alum treatment, these restrictions would be in place. And it's a matter of kind of understanding how long that would be, whether is it 5 years, is it 10 years, is it the whole life of the alum treatment, would it make sense in the future to just have Lake Morey have a smaller Wakesports zone forever? These are things that we will need to figure out, and we don't have all the exact answers yet, but I do imagine that based on what we know now, these restrictions would remain in place for the next few years.
Okay. One other question. Um, so say we allow Wakesports to go forward, and we've just had an alum treatment, right? In 24, I think maybe 2 years ago, 24, 25. To the tune of $800,000 or $900,000. If we Wakesports get to go and next year or the year, I mean, it should have like a 20-year life, right, for an alum treatment, typically. Going forward, say we have another cyanobacteria algal bloom that occurs, and suddenly our treatment has been ineffective, and we have to apply it again. The state helped us in the last effort to do the alum treatment. Can you go out on a limb and say that the state will help us again to treat our lake if the sediments get stirred up and the phosphorus becomes released, and then suddenly we have another algal bloom? I mean, are we going to be able to depend on the state of Vermont to come in and help us with this, because they are allowing this disturbance potentially to the bottom of Lake Morey? And again, I'm trying to catch you. I'm trying to have you put it on the record that the state will help us if it happens. And you may not be in a position to do that, but hey, I got to push, right?
I don't really have any,
Any say in that?
any say in that matter. These
Neither
decisions.
do I, but I will
Yeah.
say that there is a pretty extensive process that funding is just a small part of, determining whether another alum treatment would be effective or not. There's probably going to need to be more data collected or analyzed, or permitting to be considered. Yeah, there's a lot of like different pieces that have to fall into place for even for another alum treatment to be like considered. Like, is it going to be effective? Yeah, maybe there's more work that needs to be done in the watershed. So yeah, that feasibility study.
Yeah, data will be important, right? And are we collecting the proper data and enough of it as this year goes on, and then also as every subsequent year occurs?
Yeah.
Are we gathering effective data, and can we tell if there is bottom disturbance from wake boats? I mean, I would think that the wake that not only is the wake from the boat affecting what's happening to the substrate, at the bottom of the lake. I mean, whether there are lake currents also. I mean, you have a wake boat that's pushing down. It may not push, to 40 feet, but it may be pushing on an existing current in the bottom of the lake that would also then be pressed down, which would affect the sediments in the bottom of the lake. There's so many factors to take into consideration.
We also, one of our challenges as regulators is trying to treat all the different watercraft similarly or the same. And there's a lot of impacts that the other motorboats have on down, you know,
Oh,
down roads. And,
I agree,
you know,
absolutely. And if I had
they,
my way, they'd be banned from Lake Morey.
right. Yeah, we
So
get
it
to the
might be
point where we're like,
hard
well, just
to
ban
pull,
everything.
yeah, it's hard to pull out when you study these types of things. It's hard to pull out, like, whether it's the spread of invasive species, you know, is it the fishing boats? Is it other boats? Whether it's, you know, impacts from, yeah, to the bottom, is it traditional motorboats? Is it wake boats? That's not a question that we can point exactly to. So the regulations tend to be more general to capture,
Right.
you know,
But
to
we
be as protective as
do
possible.
know from studies of
We do know wake boats. I'm
yeah,
sorry, Judy, I don't mean to,
I was about to
yeah.
say probably the same thing as you, is that we
Well, I'm
do
thinking
know that
that
in
we,
the comparison studies that have been done,
right.
yeah, the wave attenuation for a wake boat in wake sports mode versus a normal motorboat is this much more. So that is why our regulations are 200 feet for regular motorboats and 500 feet for wake sports. And similarly, the depth, you know, the depth requirements for wake
Right.
sports being what they are more than regular motorboats. But at the same time, like when you get down to like whether we just completely ban something, yeah, it calls into the question the fairness and the you know, the fact that we do know that regular motorboats have impacts too. So we have to just be balanced in our approach and stuff. So
Well, we have, you know, allow, I guess, regular motorboats, you know, can come closer to the shore, right? So there are different rules
exactly.
that do come into play because we know that their the reach of their disturbance is not, it's not as deep. And I'm hoping that the state also is monitoring the newer boats that are coming out that create a deeper wake.
Mhm.
Because that will potentially affect the rules you have in place today. And
Yeah, we'll
whether,
be
you know,
watching that closely. Thankfully, you know, most of these really large wake boats that are coming out, they're not really like the feasibility of getting one of those into these access areas and into our smaller lakes is really low. Like it's just not possible in some of these smaller lakes
yeah.
to get, because some of these boats are really meant for the ocean. And yeah, it would take a huge doing to like get them launched at so that works to our
That,
advantage a little bit. But yes, we are watching, and you know, that's why we also put into the new rule, the updates to the rules, a regular recurring review period, so that we take a more proactive approach to like asking, you know, getting feedback from communities, assessing what new technologies are coming out, both in terms of new watercraft and crazy contraptions that people are using on the water, and also new technologies for decontamination. I mean, they are developing some, uh, you know, in the system of the boat, hot water decon capabilities, which is kind of cool.
yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of evolving science. So this rule-making process is meant to be an adaptive management. We learn and then we change things. Hopefully not every single year, but on a recurring basis that we, you know, we adapt and we make changes as we need to.
So Jenny and Laura, when these evaluations you say will happen annually, well, what time of the year were we talking after the summer boating season? Are we talking, you know, November, December, January, February? I mean, when will those determinations, maybe you
Are you
don't know.
talking about specifically, so we were kind of talking about two different things. One is
Yeah,
the,
we were
okay,
decontamination and all that.
so one is like the state of the science and the uses of public waters, and should we reevaluate these rules? We have, in the new rules, we've written that we will look at it on a 5-year cycle. I imagine that we would like to do that in the winter because
We have all the
that
data.
just makes the most sense. Same goes for this annual look at lakes that have had watershed management activities where Wakesports could impact them. I think that from a proactive state, we'd want to evaluate it in the winter so that any kind of decision we come to would be put out there before the boating season in the early spring, so that we can have all the appropriate outreach tools and everything that we need.
And we
So-
only have like an information session like this to inform about any change to the
Yeah.
The rules for that boating season. So if
Okay.
there is no change, yeah, we'll just continue to have the prohibition or to have the reduced wake sports zone for the next boating season.
Okay, so let me make sure I have it clear. So Laura, I think what I heard you say was that the rules would be reevaluated every 5 years, right? And then,
Mhm.
but then the annual review of the alum treated lakes, that would happen every year and probably during the winter when the data is being processed and looked
Yeah.
at. And then
Yeah.
something would come out in the late winter or early spring.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and will you send will the state send notices to Fairleigh saying we've done our evaluation and here it is, or will we have to proactively come looking for it?
I think, well, like as Jenny said, if there were some change made to what it is now, then yes, definitely, and we would try to have a meeting. If,
Oh, okay, so only if
If
there's a
it's-
change, but
yeah,
not
if
if
it's
it,
just
no,
gonna be what it
status
is
quo, you
now,
won't let us know. We'll assume that it's
Yeah.
all the same.
yeah, and we
Oh,
will
I don't like that
definitely,
because I miss too many things. Like there's so many emails that come in, I may like miss your announcement and go, oh well, I haven't heard from them, so nothing's changed.
Yeah.
I want you to call me and say, no, everything is the same. Gene, it's all good. Right.
well,
We
All
would
right.
replace signage and everything too.
Yeah, we would replace signage every year, and
Sure.
we would certainly be available for questions, and you can always reach out and ask us as well. I think, especially because these wake sports rules are new, that we will continue to do outreach each boating season for the next several years to remind people about the rules. So we would announce,
Yeah,
wakes.
here's the list
So-
again, like, yeah, we would
Yeah.
have general outreach that would include the information about Carmi and Morey as well.
Yeah.
Probably every year. We'll probably have a press release.
I just noticed it's a little after 1, so I was
Yeah.
thinking of wrapping this up.
That's fine. I know.
But-
Thank you for letting me occupy your time for the last half an hour.
No, it's great.
On
But if
a
you
very
have
personal
more
level, who knew that it
questions,
was just going to be
Yeah.
me?
I-
Like, wow.
if you have more questions, feel free to follow up. I'm happy to talk anytime or email or whatever. Because these are all really good questions. So I appreciate you
Yes,
being
thank
here.
you for asking the questions so that we could
Well-
have this be available to everybody.
Right. I
Yeah.
appreciate you. I appreciate
Yeah.
your time.